a man staggers through the door, an eviction notice crushed in his shaking hands. Debt chokes him, a sickly wife is gone, and a silent child is left behind. A grey mongrel dog stands guard in the rain, but in the darkness something is lurking to take away all he has left. Jake Wayne stumbled through the front door of the old house, his boots soaked and his hands trembling as he clutched a crumpled eviction notice. His wife, Sarah, was gone, taken by the cancer that had drained their savings and left him with a 4-year-old son, Cole, and a $50,000 debt to a man named Victor Malone. The interest had ballooned it to nearly $100,000, and Victor's crew wasn't the type to send polite reminders. They'd moved to this crumbling place on the outskirts of Ravenwood, Oregon, hoping for a fresh start, but all Jake had now was a kid who barely spoke and a dog named Blaze, a lean grey mutt with sharp eyes, who'd stuck by him through it all. The night pressed in heavy, rain hammering the roof like a fist. Blaze lay by the porch, ears twitching, his gaze fixed on the dark beyond the sagging fence. Jake dropped into a chair, rubbing his face, the weight of it all sinking deeper. Cole slept upstairs, a small shape under a threadbare blanket, oblivious to the storm outside, or the one brewing inside his father. Jake's eyes drifted to Blaze. "You and Cole are all I got left, boy," he muttered, voice rough. The dog didn't move, just kept watching the night. Then came the crash, a splintering thud against the door. Jake bolted upright, heart slamming in his chest. Blaze growled low, hackles rising. The door burst open and 4 men stormed in, led by Hank Russo, a wiry bastard with a scar slicing across his cheek like a jagged grin. "Time's up, Wayne," Hank snarled, twirling a metal bat in his hand. "Victor wants his money, and I ain't leaving empty-handed." Jake raised his fists, stepping back. "I don't have it, Hank, you know that." His voice cracked, but he held his ground. Hank laughed, a dry, ugly sound, and swung the bat. It caught Jake's ribs, sending him sprawling into the wall with a grunt. The other 3 fanned out, one kicking over a chair, another smashing a lamp. Pain flared hot in Jake's side, but he scrambled up, lungs burning. Blaze didn't hesitate. With a snarl, the dog launched himself at Hank, teeth sinking into the man's forearm. Hank yelped, dropping the bat as blood sprayed across the floor. "Get this damn mutt off me!" he roared, flailing. One of his goons lunged at Blaze, but Jake grabbed a chunk of firewood from the hearth and swung hard. The wood cracked against the guy's skull, and he went down like a sack of bricks, out cold. Hank shook Blaze off, stumbling back, his arm a mess of red. "You're dead, Wayne," he spat, clutching the wound. The others hesitated, eyeing their fallen buddy, then bolted for the door, dragging the unconscious one with them. Hank lingered just long enough to glare. "This ain't over, Wayne, you hear me? This ain't over!" Then he was gone, swallowed by the rain. Jake sank to his knees, chest heaving, and pulled Blaze close. The dog whimpered, licking his hand, warm and solid against him. "Good boy," Jake whispered, burying his face in Blaze's fur. His ribs throbbed, but he barely felt it over the adrenaline. Then he saw it. A scrap of paper shoved under the door, half soaked from the storm. He crawled over, fingers shaking as he unfolded it. Scrawled in black ink were 5 words: "Pay up or get buried." He stared at the note, the threat sinking in like ice water. Blaze growled softly, pressing against his side, and Jake tightened his grip on the dog. Out there, in the dark, Victor's shadow loomed larger than ever. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about survival. Jake sat on the sagging couch, a damp rag pressed against Blaze's matted fur. The dog's flank was bruised from the fight, but he stayed still, eyes locked on Jake like he knew something was off. Jake's own ribs ached, a dull throb that pulsed with every breath, but he couldn't rest. Not after Hank's crew had torn through his life like a tornado. He kept replaying the night Sarah got sick, how he'd begged Victor Malone for that loan, thinking it'd buy her time. It hadn't. Now he was stuck paying for a ghost. The house creaked under the weight of the storm, wind rattling the windows. Jake's skin prickled, like someone was watching from the shadows outside. He glanced at Blaze, who'd perked up, nose twitching. The dog padded to the back door, whining low, then scratched at it. "What is it, boy?" Jake muttered, hauling himself up. He grabbed a flashlight and followed Blaze into the muddy yard, rain soaking through his shirt in seconds. Blaze didn't hesitate, started circling near the fence, sniffing hard, then dug into the wet earth with a frenzy Jake hadn't seen before. Clumps of dirt flew and Jake shone the light down, frowning. "Easy, Blaze, you're going to bury yourself." But the dog kept going, paws churning until something pale caught the beam. A scrap of paper, yellowed and soggy. Jake knelt, fishing it out with numb fingers. Scrawled in faded ink, "Paul Tanner, 50,000 USD. The name hit him like a punch. A month back, he'd been cutting through an alley near Ravenwood's old mill when he'd seen it. A guy in a black coat stabbing some poor bastard under the rain. Blood pooled on the pavement, and Jake had fumbled his phone out, hands shaking as he recorded it. The killer dragged the body off, but not before Jake caught a glimpse of the victim's face. He'd never told a soul, too scared to get tangled up. Now, staring at that paper, his gut twisted. Paul Tanner. Was that him? Blaze growled, digging deeper, and the flashlight beam hit something else. Bone. A skeletal hand jutted from the soil, fingers curled like it was reaching for air. Jake stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. "Jesus Christ!" he rasped, dropping the light. Blaze kept pawing, unearthing more. A ribcage, a skull. This wasn't just a grave. It was a secret, buried right under his damn house. Victor's crew didn't just collect debts, they cleaned up messes. And Paul Tanner? He'd been one of them. Jake's mind raced. That video on his phone, he'd kept it hidden, a shaky 30 seconds of proof. If this was Tanner, then he was living on top of Victor's dirty laundry. His hands shook as he scooped up the paper and hauled Blaze back inside, locking the door. The dog shook off mud, still restless, while Jake paced, heart hammering. He couldn't shake the feeling he'd just kicked a hornet's nest. Then his phone buzzed on the counter, screen lighting up the dark room. Unknown number. He answered, breath hitching. The voice came through, low and gravelly. "You messed with the wrong people, Wayne." The line went dead. Jake stared at the phone, dread pooling in his chest. He needed help. Someone who knew Ravenwood's underbelly. Ethan Brooks, his old buddy from the force, was the only name that came to mind. Jake dialed, voice tight. "Ethan, it's me. I'm in deep. Real deep." But even as he spoke, a sliver of doubt gnawed at him. Could he trust anyone anymore? Jake pulled his jacket tighter as he stepped into the dim glow of Rusty's Diner, a rundown joint on the edge of Ravenwood where the coffee tasted like tar and the booths smelled of stale grease. Ethan Brooks was already there, slouched in the corner, nursing a mug. His old friend looked rougher than Jake remembered. Grey stubble creeping across his jaw, eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in days. "You look like hell," Ethan said, kicking out a chair. Jake slid in, keeping his voice low. "Feel like it too." He'd left Cole with Blaze back at the house, the dog still limping from last night's digging but alert as ever. Jake couldn't shake the image of that skeleton, or the voice on the phone. He pulled out his cell, slid it across the table and tapped play on the video. The shaky footage flickered. Rain, a knife flashing, a man crumpling in that alley. Ethan's face didn't change as he watched, just took a slow sip of coffee. "That's Paul Tanner," he said finally, voice flat. "Used to cook the books for Victor Malone, got greedy, threatened to sing to the feds, they shut him up." Jake leaned forward, pulse quickening. "So what's he doing under my yard, Ethan? And why's Victor's crew still on my ass?" Ethan set the mug down, eyes narrowing. "Victor doesn't just run a loan shark gig, he cleans house. Anyone who knows too much, anyone who crosses him, you're a loose end now, Jake. That video, it's a death sentence." Jake's stomach dropped. "You saying they'll kill me over this?" Ethan shrugged. "You, Cole. Hell, even that dog of yours. They don't leave witnesses." The words hung heavy as Jake drove home, the rain-slick road blurring past. Ethan's warning echoed, but something about it felt off, like he was holding back. Back at the house, Blaze was pacing by the front window, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Jake followed the dog's gaze and froze. Across the street, a shadow shifted in the alley, just a flicker, then gone. His skin crawled. They were watching him, waiting. That night he bolted the doors and kept Cole close, the kid curled up on the couch with a tattered comic book. Jake gripped the old pistol he'd dug out of a drawer, a relic from his dad's hunting days. The house was silent except for the rain, but Blaze's ears stayed up, twitching at every creak. Then it happened. A faint scrape at the back door, like a knife testing the lock. Blaze bolted upright, teeth bared, and Jake's heart slammed into his ribs. "Stay here, Cole," he whispered, shoving the boy behind the couch. He crept to the kitchen, gun raised, just as the door eased open. A figure slipped in, hooded, silent, a glint of steel in his hand. Blaze didn't wait. Launched himself with a snarl, clamping down on the intruder's wrist. The guy cursed, knife clattering to the floor as he swung a fist at the dog. Jake charged, slamming the pistol's butt into the man's temple. The intruder staggered, blood streaking down his face, then bolted out the door, leaving a red smear on the hardwood. Jake sank against the wall, breath ragged, Blaze panting beside him. The guy hadn't come for money. He'd been heading upstairs, toward Cole's room. A chill ran through him. They weren't just collecting a debt anymore. They wanted leverage. He grabbed his phone, dialed Ethan again. "Someone just broke in," he snapped when Ethan picked up. "Tried to get to my kid." Ethan's voice came cool and steady. "I knew they'd come for you. I've been tracking this for a while." Jake frowned, gripping the phone tighter. "Tracking what? What the hell aren't you telling me?" A pause. Then Ethan's tone shifted, almost smug. "You're in deeper than you think, Jake, way deeper." The line clicked off. Jake stared at the phone, a cold knot forming in his gut. Ethan knew too much, too fast. That smug edge in his voice wasn't concern, it was something else. Doubt crept in, sharp and jagged. Had Ethan really walked away from the force, or was he still playing a game Jake couldn't see? Blaze nudged his hand, whining softly, and Jake scratched the dog's ears, mind racing. Whoever he could trust, it might not be the man he'd just called a friend. The next night came fast, rain still pounding the roof like it wanted in. Jake hadn't slept, couldn't, not with Cole's quiet breathing upstairs and Blaze pacing the floorboards, ears up. He'd wedged a chair under the back door and kept the pistol loaded on the table, its weight a cold comfort. The air felt thick, like trouble was already inside the house, waiting to strike. Then, headlights cut through the curtains, tires crunching gravel. Jake peeked out. 4 figures climbed from a beat-up van. Hank Russo leading the pack, his arm bandaged, but his scowl meaner than ever. The front door exploded inward, wood splintering as Hank stormed through, a hunting knife gleaming in his good hand. 3 others followed, armed with bats and blades, faces hard under the dim porch light. "It's not just about the money anymore, Wayne," Hank growled, stepping over the wreckage. "You stuck your nose where it doesn't belong. Victor's done playing." Jake snatched the gun, aiming it square at Hank's chest. "I've got that video," he shot back, voice steady despite the sweat beading on his neck. "One call and it's all over the internet. Back off." Hank smirked, unfazed. "Go ahead, you'll be dead before it uploads." He lunged, knife slashing air, and Jake fired. The shot went wide, punching a hole in the wall as one of Hank's goons tackled him. The gun skidded across the floor and a blade grazed Jake's arm, hot pain searing through. He roared, slamming an elbow into the guy's jaw, but Hank was already moving, heading for the stairs. For Cole. Blaze erupted from the shadows, a grey blur of fury, and sank his teeth into Hank's wrist. The knife clattered down as Hank howled, kicking at the dog. "Get off me, you damn beast!" Another thug swung a bat, catching Blaze in the ribs. The dog yelped, tumbling back, blood staining his fur, but he scrambled up, snarling. Jake broke free, tackling the bat wielder, fists flying until the guy's nose crunched and he went limp. Cole's voice pierced the chaos. "Dad!" And Jake saw him darting toward the back door, safe for now. 2 down, but Hank and the last thug pressed in. Blaze lunged again, weaker this time, snapping at Hank's leg. The other guy pulled a switchblade and drove it into Blaze's side. The dog whimpered, collapsing, and Jake's vision went red. He grabbed a fallen bat and swung, cracking it across the thug's skull. The man dropped, out cold. Hank staggered up, clutching his bleeding arm, but before Jake could move, a slow clap echoed from the doorway. Ethan Brooks stepped in, rain dripping off his coat, a pistol dangling in his hand. "Not bad, Jake," he said, smirking. You've got fight in you." Jake froze, bat slipping in his grip. "Ethan, what the hell?" Ethan cut him off, raising the gun. "You were always too nosy. Victor didn't set this up. I did. Been running the show from the start, feeding him marks like you." The betrayal hit like a freight train. Jake's voice shook. "You son of a bitch!" Blaze stirred, a low growl rumbling as he dragged himself up, blood pooling beneath him. With a final burst, he launched at Ethan, teeth clamping onto his gun hand. The pistol fired wild, shattering a window, and Ethan cursed, shaking Blaze off. The dog hit the floor hard, motionless. Jake dove, snatching the fallen gun, and fired. The bullet tore through Ethan's chest and he crumpled, eyes wide in shock, then blank. A shadow loomed behind. Victor Malone, stepping from the dark, a revolver in hand. "You're a dead man, Wayne," he said, and pulled the trigger. Pain exploded in Jake's gut, knocking him back. Blaze twitched, lunging one last time, jaws snapping at Victor's ankle. Victor shot again, and Blaze went still. Jake fumbled the gun, blood slick on his hands, and fired his last round. It caught Victor in the throat. The kingpin gurgled, collapsing in a heap. Jake fell beside Blaze, the world fading as blood spread across the floor. He reached out, fingers brushing the dog's fur. "You did good, boy," he rasped, vision blurring. The rain kept falling, drowning out the silence of the dead. He collapsed. All seemed lost for Jake when the Ravenwood police stormed into the house, their flashlights piercing the rain and blood. The gang was quickly subdued thanks to Cole, who, after being saved by Blaze, had calmed down and slipped out the back door. He quickly sought help from nearby residents and called the police. Officers shouted orders, radios crackling, as they pried open a hatch beneath the kitchen floor. Down there, in a dank concrete bunker, they found it stacks of files. Names and dates scrawled in meticulous ink. Victims of Victor's empire, debt turned into death sentences. Ethan Brooks' name was everywhere, the puppeteer who played cop and crook, providing Victor with a constant stream of targets. Jake's house was their disposal, a quiet tomb for their secrets. Jake woke to the beeping of a heart monitor, the sterile white walls pressing against him. His gut burned where Victor's bullet had gone, but he was alive, just barely. A nurse hovered, adjusting an IV. "Your dog's a fighter," she said, meeting his hazy eyes. "He was in surgery an hour ago. He's recovering." Relief washed over him in a wave, followed by a sharper pain. "Cole," he hoarsely said. "Safe," she answered. "He's with a social worker now." The days passed like weeks. Jake drifted in and out, haunted by the image of Blaze collapsing beside him, that last desperate plunge. When they finally wheeled him out of the hospital, bandaged tightly around his stomach, he found Cole waiting in the lobby, his small hands clutching a teddy bear. Blaze limped out next, tail wagging slowly, a patched mess but still alive. Jake knelt down, pulling them both close. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I put you through hell. Never again." Ravenwood was a ghost he could no longer face. With the last of his strength, Jake sold the house, cursed land and all, and took Cole and Blaze west to a sleepy Oregon coastal town called Tillamook. There he rented a plot of land near the cliffs, the roar of the ocean a steady wail. He started small, building dog kennels out of scrap wood, turning his hands into something good, a training camp for working dogs, rescue dogs like Blaze, teaching them to track, to guard. Word spread slowly at first, then more. People came. Victims of break-ins, ex-cops looking to heal. Jake gave them purpose, and they gave him peace. 3 months later, life was back to normal. Cole was laughing, chasing waves with a stick, while Blaze limped, king of the pack despite his scars. The camp grew, dozens of dogs barking in the salty air, their handlers telling stories to each other over coffee. One night, a post went viral. A kid filmed Blaze leading a lost hiker back to safety, his grey fur glinting in the dark. "Loyalty is a rare thing," the caption read, and it went viral across America, a spark in the darkness. Jake sat on the porch as the sun dipped low, tinting the ocean gold. Cole lay beside him, sketching an unbalanced dog, while Blaze rested his head on Jake's knee, breathing evenly. The weight of Ravenwood was still there, Sarah's absence, the blood on his hands, but it didn't weigh him down anymore. He stroked Blaze's fur, feeling the warmth, the pulse of life. "We're family," he whispered, half to himself, half to them. The horizon stretched out, unbroken, and for the first time in years, Jake believed in the light ahead. Loyalty had pulled them through the darkness. It was all they'd ever needed.